there will be a hot war between the United States and Russia in the next year. And
really?
Yes, of course. They want it anyway. I don't think we'll win it, but that's a separate analysis. But I think as a political matter, they need to declare war footing in order to assume war powers in order to win. I believe that. And I think the evidence suggests that's true. So if you're worried about our politics getting like even more vicious than it already is, and people being hurt in our politics, which is entirely possible, you should be worried about the prospect of an open war. We're already at war with Russia, of course. We're funding their enemies. So we're fighting Russia. But I mean, an open battle with Russia, where we say we're at war with Russia.
This is my video update from Athens, Greece on this Thursday morning, August the 31st. Let's talk about some news, and let's start things off with an interesting interview that Tucker Carlson gave to Adam Carolla. Tucker is making quite a lot of news these days, and in this interview of Tucker Carlson, he talked about a possible Trump assassination and a possible hot war between the USA and Russia. And talking about Trump, Tucker said that once all the indictments fail and all the court cases fail, if all the indictments fail and all the court cases fail, and Trump does end up becoming the Republican presidential nominee, and then it looks like Trump is going to actually win the 2024 elections, Tucker said that's when the panic will set in, and that's when they will try to delete Trump. Quite an interesting statement from Tucker, and unfortunately, to my horror, I kind of agree with that statement from Tucker Carlson. I think that if we get to a point where the indictments fail, the court cases fail, Trump continues to gain support and rise in the poll and win the Republican presidential nomination, and if it does look like he's going to defeat Biden or whoever they put up against him, I think that the deep state and the globalists are going to panic, and when they panic, who knows what they will do. And there's no doubt about it that they will do whatever they need to do in order to prevent Trump from winning the presidency in 2024. And then Tucker talked about Ukraine and a possible hot war between Russia and the U.S. Tucker told Adam Carolla that the United States is already at war with Russia via Ukraine as the proxy. But he said that as the Zelensky regime continues to collapse, as the collective West continues to lose this proxy war, and as the deep state and the globalists fail in their efforts to gain more power and to continue to control the population, when the new COOF lockdown narrative fails, that's when Tucker believes that they're going to just opt for a hot war with Russia. He said they'll just fabricate some sort of Gulf of Tonkin moment, some sort of missile falling onto Poland or something like that, and they're going to say that this is an act of war against NATO, and the U.S. is going to be pushed into a hot war with Russia. Tucker said that the U.S. wants a hot war with Russia. The neocons and the deep state, they actually want a hot war with Russia, and he thinks that they may actually get it. But Tucker did say in his response to Adam Carolla that there still is time for this to be stopped. We can still prevent a hot war between the U.S. and Russia, but what has to happen is that the funding, the aid to Ukraine has to be stopped. Once the aid to Ukraine is stopped, then Tucker said that the Zelensky regime collapses or is forced to collapse, and they're also forced to enter into negotiations with Russia. So that was Tucker's statement on the conflict in Ukraine. He actually said that he will bet his house on the possibility, the good possibility, that there's going to be a hot war between Russia and the United States. He said the American people, the collective West, is not going to buy into another lockdown. They're not going to buy into a new variant of the coup. And as things continue to go badly for the Zelensky regime and for Ukraine, he thinks that there's going to be no other option left for the neocons and the globalists other than a hot war. And that's when they're going to really assert their power and control over their population, when they enter into a hot war with Russia. And I think in his statement, he was like, a lot of people are going to buy into the narrative of Russia attacked NATO or a Gulf of Tonkin type of moment. A lot of people are going to believe the propaganda because they've been conditioned to hate Russia. They've been conditioned to want some sort of war with Russia, some sort of regime change of Putin. And unfortunately, there'll be a lot of people in the West that may actually buy into a hot war with Russia. Tucker also said in his statement that he believes that NATO and the U.S. won't win. He says they will not defeat Russia, but he's like, that's a different story altogether. He's like, I'm not going to get into that, but there will be a hot war. NATO, the U.S. will not win that hot war, but as there is a hot war between the U.S. and Russia, that's when the globalists will really clamp down on society. And they're going to use the war with Russia as an excuse to clamp down on society. Speaking of escalating with Russia, we have the EU's top diplomat. This is their top diplomat. This is the guy that should be pushing diplomacy and peace and negotiations and dialogue. Joseph Borrell, Jungle Joseph Borrell, instead of pushing for dialogue and diplomacy, he continues to push for escalation and for more war with Russia. Joseph Borrell, in a statement he gave the other day, I believe to a Spanish news publication, he said that the collective West, that the European Union, has already trained or is nearing the end of training 30,000 Ukraine soldiers. He said that they were expected to be all trained up by the end of December, but the training went so well, this like fast track training program that they have in place, it went so well that the 30,000 soldiers are now ready to fight, or will be ready to fight, come October. And Borrell said that he's pushing the EU member states to train another 10,000 Ukraine soldiers so that he can have 40,000 trained up Ukrainian soldiers to send to the Zelensky regime so that they can continue to fight Russia. This is the top diplomat of the EU, Jungle Joseph Borrell. A good guy to be running your diplomacy, huh? Forget dialogue, forget negotiation, war. We gotta have more war. And Ursula, she's been quiet for a while now. She's been very, very quiet. But Joseph Borrell, he's been running his mouth quite a lot the past couple of weeks, calling for more escalation. And I think that Borrell hinted at the fact that he's going to be retiring in 2024. So I guess his overlords told him, from now until 2024, Jungle Joseph, in order for you to get promoted to your next globalist position, you really got to talk up escalation and conflict with Russia. So you have a year in your position left before you sign off. So we want you to ramp things up, to really escalate. And it looks like that is what Jungle Joseph is doing. I said in many videos talking about Jungle Joseph that he somewhere in this special military operation, somewhere along the way, Joseph got a real taste for war and for military escalation. and for pumping up the military-industrial complex. Somewhere along the way, he got a real taste for it, and ever since then, I don't know when it happened, but ever since he saw the benefits of talking up conflict, he's been in full escalation conflict mode and diplomacy, negotiations, dialogue. It's just non-existent for the European Union's top diplomat. The man who resides in the garden and who sees the world as a jungle. Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, he gave an interview yesterday, and he actually said that the German public, according to Scholz and according to the polling that his government has done, they claim that the German public is in favor of war with Russia. They're in favor of the approach that the Scholz government has taken with Russia and with Ukraine. They're in favor of escalation. They're in favor of more weapons to Ukraine, and they're in favor of more money to Ukraine. That is according to the German Chancellor. And he talked about how his government takes escalation with Russia very seriously, and they're very careful in how they escalate, and they don't make quick judgments or quick decisions, and they calibrate everything to give Ukraine exactly what it needs to continue to fight Russia. But he said that the German public, they're all for it. They absolutely support his government's escalation with Russia, which leads me to ask the question, how do you explain the AfD's rise to become the second most powerful party in Germany with something like 22% support? And the AfD is very much against escalation with Russia and very much against a war with Russia and support for Ukraine. But Olaf Scholz and his government of Baerbock, Annalena 360, and jack of all trades, Robert Habeck, they claim that the German public absolutely wants conflict with Russia. Escalate more, Olaf. We need more escalation. That is what Olaf claims the German people are telling him. And as I was reading his statements about how he calibrates the weapon systems for Ukraine to give them just what they need to win on the battlefield and to defeat Russia, Olaf Scholz was saying that what Germany's going to focus on now with Ukraine is artillery, air defense, and missiles. And I believe that this statement from Olaf Scholz was a way of preparing the German population for his green light to provide Taurus long-range missiles to Ukraine. It's coming. It's coming very soon. Olaf Scholz, one of these days, is going to announce that Germany will provide Taurus long-range missiles to Ukraine. This will be seen as a massive escalation from Russia, but Olaf Scholz is getting ready to do it, and he's preparing the ground for this announcement. That was the reason for his statements regarding the German population being in favor of war and how his administration escalates and what they're going to be providing Ukraine. This is all about the Taurus long-range missile. This is classic Olaf. It's classic Olaf Scholz. He withers and dithers and goes back and forth about providing certain weapons, Leopard tanks or whatever he's going to provide to Ukraine. He says, we're not going to do it. We're going to resist. Maybe we'll do it, but first we'll give Ukraine this and we'll give Ukraine that, and we'll only give Ukraine Leopard tanks if the U.S. gives Abrams. He always plays this little game. Golly shucks gee, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm Olaf Scholz. And eventually he caves and he delivers whatever weapons the United States orders Olaf Scholz to deliver. Because you know that the Biden White House, Victoria Nuland, she's calling Olaf Scholz and she's saying, Olaf, you better deliver those Taurus missiles. Okay, Vicky Nuland. Let me just find a way to con the German population into believing that they support this conflict and that the decisions we make are very careful and very calibrated. And I sit down with Annalena and Robert, and we go over everything very carefully. And we don't want to provoke a hot war with Russia. Just let me work all of this out and calm the German people. And okay, I'll get the Taurus missiles to the Zelensky regime. And Vicky's like, good, Olaf, better do it or else. That's pretty much how the conversation goes. So yeah, that's what all these statements from Olaf Scholz are about. Long-range missiles from Germany to Ukraine are coming. And I'm very curious to see how Russia reacts to this. So the BBC, the Telegraph, the UK Telegraph, and Forbes, they're running with stories today. And they're reporting on the fact that the Ukraine military has breached Russian defensive lines. The elite 82nd unit, the 82nd Brigade that Forbes was talking about a couple of weeks ago, they've done it. They've breached the first line of Russian defenses. They have control of Rabotynya, and now they're widening their control of the area, and they're moving further down towards Tokmak. And these articles came out one after another, and they pretty much even have the same title. I mean, it looks like the script writers, the ones that aren't on strike. I don't know who's writing these scripts, but they're getting pretty lazy because it seems like they gave them the talking points, and the BBC, the Telegraph, and Forbes, they pretty much just copy and pasted the same title, the same article, the same content. It's just all saying the same thing. Ukraine breaches Russia's defensive lines as elite unit makes progress. Ukraine gains on southern front could open way to Crimea. And the Telegraph also, and Forbes also says that Ukraine has breached Russia's first line of defense. And they talk about how Rabotynya has been captured. Now it's full speed ahead to Tokmak, and Ukraine is opening up the flanks. They're widening their control of the area. So this is what they're reporting, right? And I believe I think the Telegraph, they interviewed a think tank expert, a think tank analyst, and this guy said that he's seen video footage of a couple of Ukrainian soldiers operating in areas which were Russian-controlled in the Rabotynya area. And he said, while this is just a couple of soldiers on foot moving through some fields, the soldiers were eventually annihilated. But this is evidence. These soldiers on foot is evidence that Ukraine is now moving closer to taking Tokmak and eventually getting to Crimea. Actually, that is what Ukraine's foreign minister said. He said that Ukraine now has Crimea in its sights. It has Tokmak ready to capture. It has Melitopol ready to capture. And Crimea is right around the corner. That is what Dmitry Kuleba, I call him Mr. Kalua. That is what he said in a statement as well. So all of these statements are very well coordinated, and they're painting the picture that Ukraine is making big, fast gains, and they're going to be reaching Crimea within the next couple of weeks. The reports that I'm seeing are that there is still fighting in Rabotynya. The situation hasn't really changed that much. I have seen reports which claim that the Ukraine military has actually stopped their push south because they were just banging their head against the brick wall and they weren't making progress south. And the Russian military, they control the south of Rabotynya. Actually, I think this is a music school behind me. So if you hear some music, enjoy it. It's beautiful, actually, to hear the piano and the violin. But yeah, they've stopped trying to make gains in the southern direction, and they're now trying to widen their control. And I have heard reports, I've seen reports claiming that Ukraine has managed to gain some territory, a foothold to their, I think mostly to the east, but also to the west of what they control in the north of Rabotynya. But that's pretty much it. Those are the reports that I've seen. I haven't seen solid verification, solid evidence that Ukraine controls all over Rabotinya, and that Ukraine is now making a dash towards Tokmak. This I have not seen. But what is happening here with the BBC, Telegraph, and Forbes? What I think is going on is I think they're getting ahead of themselves. They're panicking. They need Ukraine to capture Rabotinya and to make a fast move towards Tokmak, because the narrative dictates such. The political imperative, not the military imperative, not the reality on the ground, the political imperative, the political wishful thinking must see Ukraine moving towards Tokmak before the end of October. There has to be a battle for Tokmak at a minimum before the end of October. This is what the politicians must see happen. And even though the reality presents a different picture, the media spin is getting way ahead of the reality. And so I think that the BBC and Forbes and Telegraph this is like wishful thinking news publication. You know, we're saying that Ukraine has taken Rabotinya. We're saying that Ukraine is going to be reaching Crimea in 3-4 weeks, and because we're writing it and publishing it, even though it hasn't happened, damn it, it's gonna happen. You know, it's kind of like what was that book, The Secret? It's kind of like, you know, that type of thinking. Because we think it's gonna come true. Because we publish it, it's gonna come true. It has to come true, even though the reality is much, much different. I'm not saying that Ukraine won't eventually take Rabotinya. I've actually said in many videos that I think eventually, in the next 2-3 weeks, eventually Ukraine will capture this village of 500 people, an abandoned village of what was once 500 inhabitants. But, you know, can Ukraine push further south? Can it hold whatever territory it gains? I don't think they have the ability to do it. But maybe if they get the 40,000 trained soldiers that Borrell is talking about, maybe that will help things out. The rapid training of 40,000 soldiers. That doesn't sound too encouraging, huh? A rapid training of 40,000 men. I don't know. It doesn't sound like these guys are going to be the best fighters, but what do I know? What do I know? We'll see. We will see what will happen. And since we're talking about Tucker in the opening segment, he interviewed Orban. I talked about this in a video that I did yesterday. And Orban was talking about peace. He's the one European leader who actually talks about a ceasefire, negotiations, and a peace deal. The one EU leader who talks about this. And Orban said that you know, Ukraine and the collective West, they're just going to have to suck it up that they're going to lose, to Russia. They're just going to have to accept it. They're going to have to suck it up. They're going to have to relinquish territory. They're going to have to realize admit that Crimea is Russia, will always be Russia. The 4 new regions are Russia, and that's just going to have to be the reality of the situation. That was what Orban said to Tucker yesterday. Pretty much what Orban said to Tucker yesterday. This is going to have to happen because it's going to be impossible. Those are the words he used, impossible to defeat Russia. And we're going to have to come to some sort of peace agreement where we're going to have to just accept the reality on the ground. And boy, did this piss off the Zelensky regime. It really pissed off the Zelensky regime. And they really lashed out at Orban in a big, big way. And Zelensky's BFF, Podolyak, he actually came out with a statement. Let me see if I have it bookmarked here. And he was like, look, there's going to be no negotiations, no ceasefire. Actually, we're going to be the ones dictating terms to Russia. That is what Podolyak said in his statement in reference to the call for peace from the Hungarian Prime Minister. Negotiating with Russia is out of the question until the situation on the battlefield changes, Mikhail Podolyak, a top aide to Ukrainian President Zelensky, said. Moscow continues to delude itself that it will be able to hold on to the territories it captured from Kiev, Podolyak claimed in an interview with Italian paper Corriere della Sera on Wednesday. The Russian side must suffer significant tactical defeats on the front line to develop a more realistic assessment of the situation, he assessed, and only after that could some peace talks begin. So according to Podolyak, I almost dropped the phone, it's Russia that is delusional, and it's Russia that's going to have to accept the fact that it will not be able to hold on to any territory. And only then, only when Russia accepts Podolyak's reality, the collective West's reality, the Telegraph, Forbes, BBC, once they accept their reality, which is that Ukraine is going to be in Crimea within a matter of days, when they accept this fictitious reality, only then can you have some sort of negotiations and some sort of peace. So that was Podolyak's statement. Let me move into the shade here. Actually, let's walk down there. So yeah, they were plenty mad with Orban and what he told Tucker. Plenty mad. So give me 1 sec. We'll make our way over to some shade and we'll talk about some more news topics, and we'll get to our clown world as well. Oh, all right, much better here in the shade. So let's see, where was I here? Yeah, Podolyak. No peace according to Podolyak until Russia accepts our reality. So the Kremlin has been very, very quiet about the Pskov. My God, that is hard to say. Airfield. They've been very, very quiet about who hit the airfield yesterday evening. I don't think we've had a statement saying that it was Ukraine, saying that it was somebody else, saying that it was saboteurs. Nothing. The last that I read, the Kremlin just said that they're going to be investigating the strike on this airfield, which is 30 kilometers from the Estonian border. And there are a lot of theories as to what happened, a lot of speculation. I talked about it in my video yesterday. Maybe it was Ukraine saboteurs inside of Russia. Maybe Ukraine managed to send a drone 700 kilometers from Ukraine over Belarus to hit the airfield. Maybe they have some new drone technology. Maybe this was launched from Estonia. Maybe this was launched from Latvia. Maybe this was launched from a NATO ship in the Baltic. A lot of different theories as to where these drones were launched from. But the Kremlin has not issued any type of statement as to where their intel says the drones were launched from. And you know that Russia knows where these drones took off from. Of course they do. They have the satellites, they have the surveillance, they know, but they're not saying anything, which leads me to believe that these drones were launched from NATO territory, whether it was a NATO ship, whether it was Estonia that did it, or whether it was Latvia. If it was Ukraine that did it, I think that Russia would have come out right away and said, Ukraine saboteurs, and we're going to retaliate against Ukraine by hitting decision-making centers. And Russia has sent big missile strikes, drone strikes and missile strikes towards Ukraine, and they have hit Kiev pretty hard, but I don't think these missile strikes were in retaliation for the drone strike on the airfield. So I think this is Russia once again not wanting to say what happened, because they're trying their very best to not have this conflict escalate with NATO. Going back to what Tucker Carlson said in his interview with Adam Carolla, the neocons and many people in the collective West, the globalist class, they want this war. They want a hot war with Russia. They're pushing for a hot war with Russia. But I think the Putin government is trying its very best to not have this escalate into a hot war, because that's the only thing that could possibly save Project Ukraine, is a NATO intervention. And Nuland, Blinken, Austin, Sullivan, the neocons, they realize this. They understand, Borrell, they understand that the only thing that can save Ukraine is NATO intervention, and I don't even think that's going to save Ukraine. You know, Orban, in his interview yesterday, the one thing I disagree with from Orban's interview with Tucker yesterday is that Orban said that NATO could defeat Russia. Orban is wrong. Mr. Prime Minister, with all due respect, maybe one day we'll meet, but with all due respect, I think you're wrong there. I think that Russia is already defeating NATO, and they have already defeated NATO's best military twice. They've demilitarized and defeated Ukraine, which was NATO's best equipped, strongest, most battle-ready military. And I think if NATO were to get involved in this conflict, I'm not saying it would be an easy conflict, but Russia would win. That's just my opinion. But I think there Orban was wrong. Anyway, yeah, I think the fact that Russia is being quiet about this means that they know that this came from NATO territory, and I think that Putin and his team is trying its very best to not escalate. But you know, the hardliners in Russia, they want retaliation, and how long can this game go on for? That's what I'm thinking. You know, how many times can the neocons and the warmongers hit at Russia with the Putin government keeping its patience and holding back? That's what worries me, because the hardliners, after this incident at the airbase, the hardliners, they were convinced in Russia. They were like, look, this came from Estonia. We demand retaliation. And, you know, Putin is keeping everything in check, but this can't go on for much longer. That's just my my take on this. And in the UK, speaking of escalation, in the UK, via the Telegraph, we're getting reports that the US is going to be sending a whole bunch of fifth-generation F-35s to the UK, and it's going to be sending a whole bunch of US nukes to the UK. And the F-35s are capable of carrying nuclear weapons. Defense Secretary Wallace officially resigned. This was expected. Ben Wallace has resigned. He didn't get the NATO top job. Another victim of the Zelensky curse, Ben Wallace. This is expected, though. But the U.S., they're nuking it up in the UK. So, you know, is this U.S. posturing directed towards Russia? You know, you have nukes in Belarus, so we're going to deploy more nukes throughout Europe, and we're going to deploy nukes to the UK. So is this kind of posturing and tit for tat, as the U.S. sees it, tit for tat escalation? Because the U.S., they have nukes all over Europe pointing at Russia. But Russia putting nukes in Belarus, maybe this is the U.S.'s response. Maybe the U.S. is preparing for war with Russia. And so they're nuking up the UK. Maybe the U.S. is just consolidating its control of its colonies, right? We're heading into a multipolar world order. 80% of the planet is going to be in the multipolar world. 20% is going to be the neoliberal, techno-fascist, is what I like to call it, techno-authoritarian world order. The unipolar world order, which is going to be some sort of techno-authoritarian structure, and it's going to be controlled by the globalists and the elites and the U.S. deep state, and they're going to consolidate their control of Europe, and that means a military consolidation as well as an economic consolidation. So yeah, they're going to deindustrialize Germany and deindustrialize Europe and make Europe a lot poorer, but they're also going to militarize the European territory that they control, and they're just going to move more and more bases and nukes and missiles into that territory in order to just consolidate their gains. They've lost, or they're losing, the rest of the world. They're losing Africa, they're losing South America, they're losing Asia, but they're going to fight for Asia. I think they'll fight for Asia. But one thing that the U.S. is going to do, what the deep state and the globalists, one thing that they are going to do is they are going to consolidate and strengthen their control of Europe. So maybe that's what this is about. But if you're living in the UK, I don't think this is good news, that you're going to have a whole bunch of U.S. nukes in the UK. You are target number one if a war with Russia, a hot war with Russia, does indeed break out. How am I doing on time? Yeah, I got to wrap this up. I got to wrap this video up, and I've got more news stories to talk about. Anyway, let's see here. There's a Newsweek article which talks about how Ukraine is being stiffed of Western weapons, and it talks about how a defense company in Poland, I believe Alpha Defense Contractors or something, they have a contract with the Ukraine Ministry of Defense for something like $95 million to deliver weapons. And Reznikov, the Ukraine defense minister, he's complaining to Newsweek that this Polish MIC company is not delivering the weapons. And Reznikov said there's something like $300 or $500 million in weapons contracts that have not been fulfilled yet, or that have only been partially fulfilled. And Ukraine's going to take these MIC companies to court, and they're stiffing Ukraine of weapons. And this is slowing down the super duper spring, summer, autumn, fall, winter, spring, summer counteroffensive. And they have the money. They've actually paid in advance for some of these weapons, and they haven't received all these weapons. And Reznikov is complaining about this. And the question that I ask is, where is Ukraine getting all this money? They have zero economy. They're broke. They're in a mountain of debt. There is no economy in Ukraine. There are no funds for war. So where are they getting this money? Well, it's simple. This is the money that is coming from U.S. taxpayers, from EU taxpayers, from collective West taxpayers. This is coming from money printing, and it's all going to Ukraine. And then Ukraine is buying the weapons, which go to the MIC companies. And then the MIC companies, of course, they pay their commissions to the politicians. And that's how all of this is working. Everyone is getting their cut. So when Reznikov talks about how Ukraine has paid $92 million to this Polish contractor called Alpha, or has partially paid $92 million, a $92 million contract for weapons from this Alpha defense company, this money is our money. It's the money of Polish citizens. It's the money of European citizens. It's the money of American citizens. It's money printing. And it's going to Ukraine and then coming right back to the MIC and right back to the politicians and to the Zelensky regime as well. Because, you know, he's also got to get his 10%, as does the big guy. He also has to get his 10%. So let's see here. I really need to wrap up this video. Borrell is calling for $5 billion a year to Ukraine to go into the EU peace fund, a long-term guarantee of 5 billion euros to Ukraine. The Biden White House is looking to set up a long-term slush fund. They're calling it security guarantees, but a slush fund for Ukraine, and they're trying to make it bulletproof. So in the instance that Biden doesn't win the elections and someone else wins the elections and they think about stopping funding to Ukraine, they won't be able to, because they're going to set up some sort of an agreement where no matter what, U.S. taxpayer money has to go to Ukraine in perpetuity forever. And Borrell is basically saying the same thing in this EU peace fund. That's what they call it, the peace slush fund, which is actually a war fund. Borrell is saying that the EU needs to set aside 5 billion euros every year for the long term for the Zelensky regime. So you see how all of this works. They're basically making sure the elite class and the military industrial complex are going to make sure that they're going to get paid no matter what happens in Ukraine for many, 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 many years to come. And let's do a clown world, and we'll wrap this video up. I could talk about McConnell's, I don't know what that was, McConnell's brain freeze, mini stroke. I don't know, but you know, I almost feel bad talking about it. I almost feel bad as to what they're doing to McConnell, but I just don't, because he's a warmonger. You know, I want to feel sympathy, but I can't. I won't play the video, though. You could find it. McConnell freezes up again. It's like the second or third time in public that we've seen this happen. Who knows how many times in private this has happened. But they don't remove him. They don't remove him, and they don't remove him because the globalists, this is the type of leaders they want. They want leaders like McConnell and Biden, who have no idea what's going on and who they can control, or they want leaders like AOC, who are young and dumb and completely addicted to social media, or they want leaders like Macron and Trudeau and Rutte and guys like these WEF type of leaders. These are the leaders that the deep states and the globalists want in power. So it's not about McConnell stepping down or trying to get him to step down. They won't let him step down. He can't step down. It's impossible for him to step down. It's impossible for Feinstein to step down, because the globalists, these are the type of leaders they want running things. They want these guys who are, you know, just out of it. They want the AOCs who care more about Instagram than they care about their constituents. They want leaders like Trudeau and Macron and Rutte who come from a WEF cookie cutter assembly line. Anyway, my clown world is Japanese Prime Minister Kishida, and he was with people of his administration, and they wanted to prove that the Fukushima waters, that they're clean. All the nuclear waste that was dumped in the waters is fine for the environment. And so they ate some, I think they ate some sushi or fish or whatever from, allegedly from these waters, to show the public that all is good. It's evangelismo. Hola fia. Hola fia. So they wanted to prove to the world that all is good. All is safe. There's no environmental risk from nuclear waste being dumped in the ocean. And so they ate the fish. They ate the fish, and Kishida was like, good fish, really good fish. and then as he got up from the table, you could see like a tail was growing from his butt. Oh, it's terrible the way they con us. It really is terrible. This reminds me of Obama drinking the water from Flint, Michigan, right? All is good. Look, I'm drinking water from Flint, Michigan. The water is clean. No problem. Nothing to see here. Kishida said, he told reporters, this is very good. Safe and delicious. Safe and delicious. And then a third ear started to grow on his forehead. Anyway, guys, that's the video. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, and Rockfin, and also on Twitter. Go to the Duran shop. 10% off. Use the code. Good day. Take care.